Support for this podcast comes from Frito-Lay and the 2023 Snack Bracket Championship. The Frito-Lay Snack Challenge is underway, and fans are voting on their favorite snacks to crown champion. We're talking about prime-time matchups between the best 64 snacks in the land. Will Ruffles Ridges reign supreme? Can Doritos defend their dynasty? Or will Smart Food use their smarts for a surprise upset? Only you can decide. Get in on all the action for a chance to win up to $1,000 or a year's worth of snacks. Let your snacks be heard. Just go to fritolaysnacket.sbnation.com to vote and enter for a chance to win. No purchase necessary. Sweepstakes ends April 3rd, 2023. Void where prohibited. Year's worth of snacks awarded in the form of 52 coupons, each good for one bag of chips. See official rules at fritolaysnacket.sbnation.com.
This is the Black Gold Banneret Podcast. Now, here are your hosts, Jeff Sharon and Eric Lopez.
God, that committee's awesome, huh?
I've said it for 5 years. Y'all didn't listen. I told you so.
Isn't the CFP committee great? They're just so awesome. Every single one of them. They get it right. They work hard to get it right. Welcome to the show. Jeff and Eric with you here. We got Drew here for segment 1 and possibly segment 2. This is a feel-good show heading into the Thanksgiving weekend, folks. Let's be honest with you. We got football still ranked and with essentially now we can say it, right, Drew? Win and they're in. Despite the loss to Navy, win and they're in the American Athletic Conference Championship. Not hosting, but in.
Yeah. Who would have thought?
Yeah, who would have thought that? We also, speaking of who would have thought, UCF men's basketball wins the Baha Mar Championship. UCF women's basketball knocking off Louisiana Monroe. They're off to a good start. Later on, we're going to preview UCF Volleyball, their biggest weekend of the year, maybe in a couple years, actually.
Program history.
Facing with a ostensibly, possibly, depending on the results of Wednesday night, a American Athletic Conference Championship on the line, numerous records on the line. But we start, gentlemen, with the news on football. All right. We're not going to spend too much time rehashing what happened in the Navy game. What happened.
It never happened. What are you talking about?
It did happen because
I beg to differ. We didn't rank. We're still ranked.
Well, here's the thing, though. It did cost UCF the chance to host the American Athletic Conference Championship. And we were quite downtrodden after that because we thought UCF could possibly drop out of the CFP rankings, which again are one of the main determinants for the tiebreaker in the American. However, late Tuesday night, in comes the College Football Playoff Committee saying, you know what, UCF's pretty good, actually. UCF drops only 3 spots from 19 to 22. Tulane is at 19. Cincinnati is at 24. By the way, as a slight aside, new entrant into the top 25, the Louisville Cardinals, who UCF lost to at home earlier this year, who are 7-4 on the year. They have snuck into the top 25. Suddenly, a quality loss.
2 spots. They dropped from 20 to 22 for the record.
Yeah, well, still. They were 20 to 20. Okay, yeah, you're right. Still, Louisville becomes a quality loss.
It is.
And here's the situation. As Andrew and I wrote about on Monday, and we confirmed on Tuesday on blackandgoldbanneret.com. You can read it right now. The tiebreaker is, the way it shakes out, is the winner of Cincinnati and Tulane, who play Friday night. That team will host the conference championship game. Whichever team loses drops down to 2 losses in conference. And that if Houston defeats Tulsa, which, by the way, no given, but Houston is favored, that would create a 3-way tie. If you have a 3-way tie, you go to the college football playoff rankings. And you have to go to the one that is this week, not the one right before the championship, because it's too soon. You go to this ranking, and whichever team won their last regular season game and was ranked ahead in the college football playoff rankings, they go to the championship game. So that would mean that if you lost that weekend, which either Tulane or Cincinnati would, one of them is going to be out, regardless of what next Tuesday's rankings say. And UCF, with a win against South Florida, is in. I have but one conclusion, Eric Lopez. I will begin with you. The brand is strong.
And humans prevail over computers. Thank you very much. That's the victory today. The brand, I would say a couple things. You mentioned the Louisville ranked 25th. I do think that's significant. Credit to Scott Satterfield and Louisville, because Malik Cunningham's kind of been in and out of the lineup. Them being 7-4, you're right. That's a quality loss now. We thought, oh boy, that's a bad loss. Maybe from the execution standpoint.
You thought it was a really bad loss.
At the time, it looked bad, but to their credit, I mean, that's why you have to play it out. It's not anymore. And I think the committee's rewarding UCF for playing Louisville, for playing Georgia Tech. Let's thank Brent Key here. Let's just go crazy here, folks, on the Banneret.
Wait a minute. We got to thank Brent Key?
Yeah.
I'm not thanking Brent Key.
I know. Drew's still holding grudges.
I'll thank Brent Key. Brent Key's a good
Jeffrey.
guy.
Thank you.
Brent's a good guy. He got handed a rough deck of cards there. But anyway.
He's actually done a decent job there at Georgia Tech. Like, they're actually they've been pretty, I mean, they're not great, but they're not awful. Like, they've actually had some wins. They just knocked off North Carolina, I believe.
They knocked off number 13 North Carolina in Chapel Hill under Brent Key. Eric Lopez. Georgia Tech is 4-3 with wins over ranked Pitt at Pitt. A win at Virginia Tech and a win at ranked North Carolina.
Yeah, you know who beat Georgia Tech? UCF did. So all of a sudden, this body of work, plus you have wins over Tulane on the road, and you beat Cincinnati, who are still in the top 25. That's a quality resume, and that's a top 25. I don't know about 22. Hey, we're pulling hairs. I think a lot of the body of work there helped, and I also think this. We focused a lot on the Navy win-loss record, 3-7. Oh my God, what did we say? What did you say, Jeff, last week about Navy? Remember we talked about Trey Neal. We had on the show. Navy's a pain in the blank to play, right? Because of the style of play. Guess who knows that? The committee does. See Navy. They almost beat Notre Dame the week before. I think if Navy actually
that should have been a heads up to us, by the way. I think.
Well, I took Navy with the points. Thank you very much. So, Drew,
okay.
You did too, right? You took Navy, getting the points.
No, I didn't.
Oh, Drew. Now you should have learned better. Anyway, but the point is, yes.
I was on vacation. I was on the road on the trip. I don't think I was in my right state of mind.
Well, that's true. You were in Ohio. Although maybe you should stay and maybe go back. We'll get to that. Anyway,
don't tempt me. It was enjoyable in that lake effect snow.
We might need somebody to cover a game in Ohio in about a week.
Well, they did outscore Notre Dame 19-0 in the second half.
My point is,
but Eric, you can't convince me to go to Cincinnati.
Well, that's a whole other story.
It smells.
Okay,
all
fine.
Right,
fine. Whatever.
The point is, the committee respects Navy. Like, you may not respect the win-loss, but they understand how difficult it is to play that style, so they didn't punish UCF as much. So I'm just telling you, the whole body of work, it makes sense. And at the end of the day, whether you agree with it or not, I think everybody can agree with this. This is the appropriate way for the American Conference to be settled. These are the three best teams in the league. The championship game should be settled between two of these three teams. If UCF
it's going to anyway.
Well, there was a scenario where the computers would have screwed it, and we could have had a rematch of Cincinnati and Tulane. Honestly, UCF, if they beat South Florida, has earned the right to play for the championship game.
Well, Drew, before I get to you on that, okay, fair. But Drew, you and I, sometimes we put our tinfoil hat on, okay?
No, you put your tinfoil hat on.
All right, I put my tinfoil hat on, and you fasten it with a chin strap. But anyway.
That's because it's fun to watch you dig your own hole.
If you're the CFP committee, you got to put one New Year's Six team in one of those bowls. You got to choose between UCF, Cincinnati, and Tulane. Would you rather have, and by the way, I'm not talking from the Americans' perspective, I'm talking from the CFP's perspective. Would you rather have future Big 12 member UCF, future Big 12 member Cincinnati, or not future Big 12 member Tulane.
Well, no, I think
which one would you want?
I think your theory's correct, but it's the wrong teams you're picking. The real question is, would you rather have UCF, Cincinnati, or Tulane, or Coastal Carolina?
But that wasn't the question he asked. That's the second part of the question.
But no, I think
that would be the question, except for the fact that Coastal Carolina is not ranked.
Exactly.
So toss them out, and now they've been. I mean, they could have easily unranked UCF. They could have easily done that.
We all thought they were going to.
Right.
Let's be honest.
Although I will say this, the AP poll, when it came out at 25, I think you kind of paused for a minute there. Now, I am surprised they're 22. Fair. I think 22 is the surprising part. I think if you would have told me if they were 25 tonight in the poll, I would have said, oh, okay, 22 is surprising, because I do think they should have dropped another spot. But again, that's polling error.
Well, and as I pointed out in our group chat earlier today, that the CFP often mimics the AP. So it's actually quite a bit off on this one compared to the AP poll.
Correct. I've always thought that was not fair to it was a little stretched out, but point taken. I mean,
but I'll be honest. I think 22 is a little high for UCF, all things considered. I think actually that 24, where Cincinnati is, would probably be a better fit.
Agreed.
But look at how this year's actually shaken out. It's a lot of middle of the road teams and that's allowed a 3-loss UCF, a 4-loss Louisville to squeeze into the CFP in a different year.
4-loss Texas too, by the way.
Yeah, it's Texas. They've got brand power. You know, Louisville, UCF, they've got nothing on Texas as far as brand. But you know, in a different year, different circumstances, a 3-loss UCF is not getting in the top 25. I think a lot of it's also circumstantial, where you know the schools taking advantage of the weaknesses. Look at schools that they expected to do well, like Texas A&M and Auburn. You know, schools that normally are in the ranking. It's a
down year in the sport in general. Like we always, you know, it's not there's not a lot of great teams out there, and I think.
I don't think that's true.
No, that's not true.
No, that's not fair.
You're seeing more parity as far as talent distribution, and this is what the transfer portals actually bring to the table, and that's another thing where expansion in the CFP over a long period of time could actually do more of is leveling the playing field a little bit, not fully, but a little bit. People are like, oh well, these little schools don't stand a chance. Yeah, in a small short term thing, but when you look at long term, you're going to have the big guys, the blue chip athletes still go to the big schools, and then they're going to leave because they're not getting the playing time. And now a MAC school, a Conference USA school that has a real opportunity to make a splash, whereas in the 4-team setup, in the current setup, they're essentially locked out. There's more opportunity. You're going to see guys move into some smaller schools, and it'll give them not sustained success, but flashes and opportunities of success. You see it in basketball in a different way, where small schools can make a Cinderella run. You may be able to see, a smaller school maybe get to the second or third round of the playoffs once every
that's getting down the road. I mean, that's getting down the road.
But everything that's being done,
I don't think
done on a long-term basis.
I think Jeff brings up a good point here. UCF, Tulane, Cincinnati would be a better draw in the Sugar Bowl. Let's toot our own horn here, Drew.
Cotton Bowl, most likely, to be fair, Eric, not Sugar Bowl.
My bad.
It's going to be the Cotton Bowl.
I'm old. No, I screwed up. So, but the Cotton Bowl. Who do we have, Drew, in the Cotton Bowl right now? That just came out, by the way, on blackandgoldbanneret.com. Check it out right now.
I'd like to preface.
Bowl projections.
Bowl projections came out before the CFP came out.
Fair. But who do we have in the
Last week we had UCF in the Cotton Bowl. This week you and I both have Cincinnati.
Who's the opponent do we have?
Huh?
Who do we have as the opponent, though? That's what I'm focusing
on. Oh, Tennessee.
Who's the coach?
Jacket McShackett.
Wouldn't that be fun if he had you think about this scenario? You could have, if UCF were to win out, play in the Cotton Bowl, potentially against Tennessee. and Josh Heupel with his starting quarterback for the bowl game with the last name of Milton. Folks, that's what we call money and TV draw.
That's what we call.
Well, to be fair, no, Mackenzie Milton did not find any extra eligibility at the University of Tennessee. We're talking about the backup quarterback for Tennessee who'll be playing because Hendon Hooker, unfortunately, tore up his ACL his last game, which is really a bummer because Hooker's having a great year. But anyway,
let's talk real quick about why we both picked Tennessee, and I'll go first on this. So
go for it. Yeah.
Obviously, we're expecting Georgia to be in the CFP. I think that's a pretty safe assumption, and the assumption is they're going to win the SEC championship over LSU. So the way it's set up through the contract bowls, the Sugar Bowl takes the SEC champion or the runner-up or the next one in the pecking order if the champion's in the CFP. So
of course they're going to take a team in Louisiana.
They're going to take LSU. Well, at that point, they're the runner-up. They're going to take LSU.
Yeah.
Then you go to the Orange Bowl. The Orange Bowl can take an SEC team, a Big Ten team, or Notre Dame. They're not going to take a Big Ten team because the likely winner of Ohio State, Michigan in the CFP, the loser, the Rose Bowl. So there's really no one to pick from other than Penn State. They're not going to take Penn State because they're going to take Alabama. With Tennessee losing their starting quarterback, the star power is down. Alabama becomes the sexy pick for the Orange Bowl. Then the Cotton Bowl gets to pick the leftovers. And you know what? There's always the possibility that they may skip on Tennessee because of the loss of the quarterback. I ultimately think they'll still end up there, but they could bypass them.
For who though?
End up in the Citrus Bowl.
Well, who would they pick then?
Well, it depends on how everything else would play out, right? It could be a Penn State in that scenario. It could be maybe USC if they're not in the playoff, right? Or something like that. And
it could be
USC wouldn't be in the Rose Bowl.
Maybe in the Rose Bowl. It could be a Washington, which is
Well, no. What I'm saying about USC is if they were to lose in the Pac-12 to Oregon, because then Oregon would be in the Rose Bowl. USC would then drop to the.
That's a valid point. Oregon has a chance. Penn State has a chance. Right. Washington has a chance. Those are.
Yeah.
Now Washington's kind of the outside looking in at this point, but there's an opportunity for all those teams with Tennessee losing Hendon Hooker.
Yeah, that opens the door a little bit for them, but that could open the door. You're right. That could open the door a little bit. But still, granted, Tennessee is a good brand to have in the Cotton Bowl if you're that.
Well, I'm be honest. I mean, Penn State's not a bad brand. I mean, none of these schools are bad brands. I mean, from a brand value standpoint, they all.
I don't know of any bad brands there until you get to
Washington.
No,
they're right.
Tell that to the Big Ten, who would really like Washington now.
Some in our fan base want to play once a Washington UCF home and home.
I mean, I don't think you start getting to. I don't say bad brand, but non-brand in the top 25 until you hit. Let's face it, Tulane.
But Tulane. Here's the thing about Tulane: if Tulane gets that spot, that all 20. I mean, they're going to sell out their allotment. They're going to that's like the biggest deal for them. So it's a win-win for everybody.
Yeah.
The weakest brand in the top 20, aside from Tulane, is TCU. You know, TCU is not they're having an outstanding season, but from a brand standpoint.
Sure.
Fair, but they're also
brand like some of these.
We forgot,
but they're number 4 and undefeated at 11.
Well, yeah, but you were talking about brands, so it's either you look at. I guess you can look at both, but right now we both have Tennessee as our picks for the Cotton Bowl. Yeah. I think that can easily change with Hooker being out.
Well,
I want to see how they do against Vanderbilt. They play away at Vanderbilt, who's riding high on a win over Kentucky, breaking the SEC record. Basically they're now playing with house money. It doesn't matter what they do; they're playing with house money, and they can play the role of spoiler. They can really ruin Tennessee's season more than it already has.
Well, they're 5-6, but they are coming off 2 straight wins, one at Kentucky and one at home versus Florida.
Yeah, they beat Florida.
We're spending way too much time on Tennessee Vanderbilt here.
Let's pull it back
because impact UCF's bowl opponent. Now hence why we're talking about it.
Right, but in order for that to happen, we still have 2 games to play. None of it happens if UCF no-shows this Saturday in Tampa against South Florida. Now, let's talk about the most important things, the games that we need to watch in the American. First up, Tulane, Cincinnati. Winner of this game will host the American Championship. Both those teams are 9-2. They're tied in the conference standings. Cincy is the home team. They are a 2-point favorite.
What do we know about the quarterback situation there? I know you. I remember you met Bennett. Didn't Bennett get hurt in the Temple game?
Bennett got hurt in the Temple game, but I have not seen anything on his status. I apologize. I actually haven't really looked. But
Cincinnati Tulane's a big Friday game.
And that's Friday night, so we'll have some information.
But here's the question, guys: would you rather play in Cincinnati or in New Orleans?
At Tulane. No,
and I agree. At Tulane. Weather is more favorable, and you've already done it.
And you're probably going to have 40-45% of the fan base in the stadium.
It's a small stadium.
It's funny.
30,000.
We lose a home game, but we might get it back if Tulane wins to a degree. All you got to do is get on a plane and go to New Orleans. I think Cincinnati Nippert. Going to Nippert, that is tough to ask. And asking to beat Luke Fickell twice
in the weather.
Yeah, the weather.
I'm looking at it. The weather.
Miserable in Ohio. There's a reason why you didn't stay.
And we're talking about Ben Bryant, by the way, for Cincinnati, the quarterback. Luke Fickell said as of 8 hours ago, according to Sports Illustrated, he is still dealing with a foot ailment, and he is a game time decision against Tulane. If he does not play, Evan Prater, no relation to Matt Prater, would take over for Cincinnati.
That's a big wrinkle there. But yeah, I would rather.
Would you rather play at Tulane a second time or at Cincinnati with a backup quarterback? That's a good question.
I'd still take Tulane.
Yeah.
You know what they bring. You know what their strengths are, the weaknesses are. As we know,
we know what Cincinnati's strengths and weaknesses are.
Well,
but Cincinnati's also been in a title game. That staff and some of those players that are back have been in a title game. Tulane hasn't. This is all brand new to Tulane. They're probably going to throw a parade before that championship game, like they did the last time they played.
Let's not sleep on Tulane too much. We did only beat them by one score.
Here's the other problem, and I'm being serious about this because I've been to New Orleans. That American Conference title game, if it's at Tulane, is going to go up against LSU Georgia at the same time. I guarantee you, everybody in that state's watching LSU Georgia. I'm being serious. UCF can probably get 40 to 50% of their fans in that game.
If they can get over there.
I think this fan base has proven they can do it when they're ready to go. I think they can do it.
Well, more the fact it's very short notice.
Well,
better than Nippert, where you're not going to get 40, 50%.
But let's be real here. Let's not make the same mistake we made last week and count our chickens before they have hatched.
Well, we're playing an FCS team this weekend, so.
It's famous. Hey, here's the thing about rivalry games. Let's change gears. Let's talk about the game.
Let's talk about South Florida. Yes,
I thought you said we were going to talk about Cincinnati until next week. Oh, that other game. Wait.
So let's talk about South Florida this week now, and something to keep in mind. Rivalry games are weird. Things happen.
Yep.
It doesn't matter what your record is going into the game. You might as well be 0-0. Things don't always play. Like, remember, 2013, UCF is,
riding high.
Riding high. They're on the cusp of getting, a BCS bowl bid. South Florida, not very good. And UCF had to come back and win. They were losing in the fourth quarter. I mean, weird things happen in rivalry games.
Look at last year. UCF was supposed to handle South Florida. The game came down to.
No, they weren't.
Yes, they were.
UCF was banged up. No, UCF was banged up going to that game. Nobody said that was going to be a blowout. No.
You did.
No, I didn't. I said they were banged up. I said they were banged up.
No, you said the same thing you said this year.
No,
it's like, this will be a practice game.
No, I didn't.
Yeah, you did.
Listen back to the episode.
Oh,
I said they had a playmaker at quarterback by the name of Timmy McClain, and that UCF's banged up. That USF has a chance to make it interesting. They don't have Timmy McClain this time. They don't even have their starting quarterback. They don't even have their backup quarterback. They don't even have their head coach. They don't even have a defensive coordinator. They don't even have fans. This
UCF, by the way, last year UCF was a 17-point favorite over South Florida.
That's what I was about to say. I pulled that up. There were a 17-point favorite. The over/under was 62, and there was 30-point score in actuality.
Yeah. By the way, this year spread 19.5 in favor of UCF. Over/under 69.
Well, here's what it's
nice.
Here's the case why to take the concern. This team has proven to play to the level of its competition, and that's a problem. And I blame the players for this, not the coaches. I don't think this team has good leadership. That's leadership. And I think, to me, you just got a reprieve from this committee. If you can't get, ready to go and just take care of business this Saturday, that's on you, the players. That's not on the coaches. So, to me, it's about the players and the leadership. And they better show some this week, because they didn't show it last week. That's a fact.
Interesting little number from OddsShark here. Both these teams are No, I have that wrong. UCF is 8-3, 7-4 against the number. South Florida 1-10, but 4-7 against the number this year.
USF's offense is sneaky, has actually been decent.
Well, they put 42. They lost. They put 42 on Tulsa at Tulsa last week and lost. They have put. They've lost some shootouts this year.
Yeah.
They put 21 on BYU, 28 on ECU, 24 on Cincinnati, and they lost by 4 points. 31 on Tulane, 27 on Houston, 28 on Temple. Boy, they got absolutely trounced by Temple. 23 on SMU. That was it. But again, this is one of those things where, they have not been. I hesitate to say that they have not been in every game. They have been in every.
Well, they've been competitive.
Most of their games.
The issue they have is their defense is atrocious.
Yeah, and they can't close.
And they can't stop the run. So this should be no excuse for UCF not to run all over them. And then defensively, you got to just shut them down. I mean, again, if UCF comes with the right mindset, I think they will. I think after that loss, I was there. There was a shock value. I think there were some players that took that game for granted. Sam Jackson even said that. They did not think that would be their last home game. I think they were shell-shocked. And I think their tone was, man, our season could be over. Now they've been reprieved. I expect a motivated UCF team, and I think they will destroy South Florida if they show up with the right mindset. On the other hand, if they might just play to the level of competition, and maybe we have a game in the fourth quarter. We'll find out.
Drew, there are 131 teams in Division I FBS. South Florida is dead last in total defense.
Yeah.
Third to 131 is the number. 128th in rushing defense, 128th in passing yards allowed, 130th in pass efficiency defense, 130th in scoring defense, and 130th in first down defense.
That's pretty bad.
It's not good.
It's not great.
It's not good. Not great, Bob.
Right. This is a defense you can get healthy from the struggles that you had offensively last week. This is a defense you should get healthy on.
Drew, what do you want to see done here?
Well, I mean, you need to go back to your bread and butter. You need to go back to what your team is about. Use this as an opportunity to reset your offensive mind, because they went away from what makes this team good against Navy, and they struggled as a result. So you're a running team first, focus on that, make sure that's covered, and then start, you use it to open the pass. But you know what? You're in a situation where if you can build up a lead, 17-point plus lead, you can then rely on the run and just wear them down and maybe sprinkle in some passes here and there, but you don't have to, rely on it. As we, Coach Malzahn said that, there was some shoulder soreness, whatever. You know what?
John Rice Plumlee, one of the things that they did mention was that he was suffering from some shoulder soreness.
This is an opportunity to not have to tax him. It's different when you're playing from behind. Obviously, you go to the pass more. Get a takeaway, get a stop, something, use an opportunity, get a lead, build it up, 17 points, 3-score lead, and then just utilize the run. You've got a stable of running backs that you can rotate out and maintain freshness without putting much strain on your quarterback.
Right.
And as we know, they're trying to maintain Mikey Keene's red shirt. He's got one game left. in his redshirt arsenal. So, put a low stress situation on John Rice Plumlee, allow him not to get overly dinged up, but not use Mikey Keene in case of emergency, and ride the running game. That's what UCF won on in most of these other games, is the fact that they have such a strong running game that defenses overcommit to it, and they get able to shoot over the top. Yards after catches UCF's receiving specialty, because they're on one-on-one coverage all the time.
Right.
That's because they're bringing in the linebackers because they respect the run. So you know what? Make them respect the run again.
Yeah. This is the country's 7th best rushing offense against one of the worst rushing defenses in the country. I think that's, let's not get cute here. That's kind of my thought on it. Pound the rock, and let's get out of here with a dub. And then, and be content, I would say, on Saturday, having watched, Cincinnati and Tulane beat the tar out of each other probably for 60 minutes plus up in Nippert, and then start game planning again to see what you're going to do in that game going forward. And I think it's actually it would say, I tell you, I still think I was looking at some of the reaction, and as we wrap up the segment, talking about what we saw in the polls, I did see some fan reaction to the polls saying, man, I can't believe we're ranked that high. Like, I actually saw someone say we didn't deserve to be ranked that high. And I'm like, man, we've made it if our fans are complaining about us being ranked too high.
Well, I think it's more of we felt so let down from what happened last week in that situation that we really didn't expect. Like, I didn't expect us to be ranked in the top, maybe squeezing at 25, but that was kind of hopeful. But 22, I'm still like, I think 22 is still a stretch. I wouldn't have said 22. If you're going to rank,
whatever,
UCF,
it actually didn't matter where we were ranked. All it mattered was that we were ranked.
Exactly. That's
for the
all
purpose of the tiebreaker. Yeah.
But as we know, it's a game changer. It's a complete game changer as far as this tiebreaker system goes, because everyone's like, oh, well, what about the computer rankings? You know what? The computer rankings don't matter anymore, because now we have a different.
Hallelujah.
You don't have to worry about it.
Different provision. It's on blackandgoldbanneret.com. We talk about it. But the truth is, it's now winning in.
Eric is happy. Eric is happy because he likes humans for some reason. Tulane, Cincinnati, by the way, they're on at noon on Black Friday. Roy Phil, our boys Roy Philpott and Andre Ware, who've had just like instant classic after instant classic this year, and who knows, maybe they'll get another one. Saturday, Eric, what do we got? We're on
7 o'clock on ESPN2.
Yeah, Taylor Zarzauer, and forgive me if I'm pronouncing their name wrong. And Matt Stinchcomb.
That's right, with Alyssa Lang on the sideline there. Former Jacksonville native, Alyssa Lang. Done very well for herself.
Across, by the way, from LSU, Texas A&M, Notre Dame, USC, Tulsa and Houston. Actually,
good numbers. Yeah, don't expect good numbers there.
Well,
Kansas
Tulsa, Houston
Kansas
got
State.
the U.
Yeah,
they got the ESPN treatment.
Right. Washington's, well, that's later on. That's the Apple Cup at 10:30. Clay Matvick is going to be on that one. But
I'll tell you that Notre Dame USC game, that's a big game.
That got big. That got big all of a sudden, didn't it?
Because USC's is sneaking around. They're hanging around. Pulled that.
Well, did you see the clip from Feinbaum earlier today?
I heard it.
Okay. Well, he said, he thinks that if USC defeats Notre Dame, wins the Pac-12, they should be in the championship. They should be in the college football playoff because nobody is going to watch TCU. And I thought, oh, here we go. The new fight has begun. Well, now the fight for the Big 12's respect has begun.
I don't think it's a Big 12 respect. It's just nobody gives a crap about TCU. I mean, that's really what it's about. I mean, it's short word.
we know Paul Feinbaum is a blue blood guy. That's all,
Right. That's all he cares about. But it's entirely conceivable that TCU could go in there, win the Big 12, go into the conference, go into the CFP undefeated, and possibly at least get to the championship game. No.
By the way,
breaking news.
Yeah, Stuart Mendel just stole Drew's thoughts on the college football about LSU and the sugar, Alabama and the orange, Tennessee. Apparently, Stuart listens to the show, Drew. He agrees with you. LSU sugar, Alabama orange, Tennessee cotton. Congrats.
I mean, it writes itself and makes so much sense because you also, aside from the contracts, you know where everyone is in the pecking order.
You nailed it. Yeah, you nailed it.
Sugar gets first, orange will get second, cotton gets third. Just go down the range.
I will say this to quote Mike Tyson. Everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the face. So, I'm just saying. I don't know, but
I don't know where. He's getting confused at this point. I don't know where he's going, but you know what? UCF got punched in the face last week, and you know what? They rolled with the punch, were able to stay standing, and now they've got another opportunity to throw some haymakers on those poor guys at the University of West Central Florida.
Stuart Mendel is stealing your material, Drew.
Well, I mean, he gets paid more than I do.
Yeah. All right. Well,
it's like Dane Cook, and I'm like some schlup in like some local stand-up.
Stuart Mendel.
Nonetheless, your game plan for, if you're a UCF fan, Thanksgiving, anything worth watching on Thanksgiving? No, the Egg Bowl. It's
called the National Football League. That's
Tulane, Cincinnati at noon on ABC on Black Friday. And then UCF against South Florida, 7:30 7 o'clock on ESPN2. UCF once again 19.5 point favorites at the moment. Cincinnati favored by 2 over Tulane. That's going to be a good game up there in Nippert, man.
And remember, you can essentially say 3 points automatically go to the home team. So Cincinnati by 2, they're really saying Tulane by 1.
Yeah. I just hope they beat the tar out of each other for 11 overtimes.
And I hope Tulane survives. I'd rather play Tulane than go to Cincinnati.
Hey, you know what? I don't care who we play. We got a shot. That's all you want is a shot. And you know something? I'll take it. Then you got to be prepared for the moment. And so far, we've seen UCF be prepared for moments and not prepared for moments this year.
Right. No, this is the Saturday. That's it. Like, you've got no wiggle room. Just take care of business like you're supposed to, and you're in.
All right.
It's going to be a test for Gus Malzahn, and as far as getting his team, getting his players on the same page and keeping their eyes on the prize.
Yep.
Not understanding, the fact that USF has a terrible record is not something to overlook, because as we know, any team can win any game on any given day. Yep. They've experienced it. The ECU loss would have told them that, but let the Navy one sit even in like more of a sour taste in their mouth.
Yeah. All right. So that's what we will be watching, and that's hopefully what you'll be watching. I'm guessing we'll be night shifting after that game too, Eric.
Yeah, unless they lose, and then I'm just going to head for cover at that point, because the program will be down in flames. Because the reaction.
The program won't be down in flames.
You lose Saturday, to that. I remember.
Oh, it'll be bad, but it won't be cancel the program bad.
Some people might differ. I mean, it'll be ugly. Put it to that.
Well,
way.
The only people who matter, it won't be. I'm just saying. What are they going to do? Cancel the Big 12 invite? I don't think so.
Let's hope not.
We dry on that one.
We signed it.
Yep.
Oh, it's signed.
We signed it. It's signed.
Good thing
it's signed. It was faxed.
Hallelujah.
We have video of it and
Thank
everything.
God. Hallelujah.
So,
the letter of intent has been signed.
Yeah. Can't take it back now.
Right? No prenups.
When we get back, speaking of taking care of business, men's basketball, man, going out to the Bahamas and handling Oklahoma State and Santa Clara. Off we go with men's basketball, surprising people. Also checking out UCF women's hoops. When we return, this is the Black Gold Banneret Podcast. We're back after this.
Today's episode is brought to you by Cars.com. With over 2 million vehicles and 50,000 more added every day, Cars.com will match you with the perfect car for you, your budget, your life, your style. And if you're ready to say goodbye to your current car, Cars.com will get you an instant offer to cash it in. Just start by entering your license plate and get matched with a local dealer who will write you the check. So whether you're looking to buy or sell, just go to Cars.com. It's magical.
We are back here on the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. Jeff, Eric, and Drew with you as we get ready on our pre-Thanksgiving show coming out a little early. Hope you're listening while you're traveling to wherever you may be traveling. Please drive, fly, boat, whatever safely. I'll tell you one thing. Somebody was really happy to be back home for Thanksgiving week. UCF men's basketball, boys. What a weekend for the Knights. Who are now 4-1 on the season, have won 4 in a row since the opening night double OT loss to UNC Asheville. Starting with Friday night, Eric Lopez, a 60-56 overtime victory over future Big 12 mate Oklahoma State. And then took care of Santa Clara on Sunday in the championship of the Baha Mar Bahamas Championship, played at the Baha Mar Convention Center. By the way, that hotel's beautiful in Nassau. Did you see some of the things they had? I'm like, I was looking at, I was checking out some of the stuff that they had going on. They have an amazing water park. I'm taking the kids there when I get the opportunity there because it's actually really nice. But
you need to follow
that
suit.
Aside,
you need to follow suit what some of the other UCF employees do that work the other Bahamas tournament. There's a reason they assigned to that gig. Right.
So, but all that aside, huge weekend for UCF men's hoops. I don't think I'll be honest with you, and I don't think a lot of people thought they'd get out of the Oklahoma State game as they did, and it didn't look good early because they fell down 24-7. Is that right, Eric?
Well, they were down 17.
They were down 17 points in that game, but clawed back, and then suddenly they forced overtime in this game. And it was really defensive, and it was down in the trenches and ugly. And I think we learned what brand of basketball this team that they really established, I think, this weekend. And I said this on social media, a defensive identity. Their identity is defense and rebounding. And Taylor Hendricks said that after the championship game, which we'll get to in a second. But he was named MVP of the tournament against Oklahoma State, 16-12. 6 offensive boards. CJ Kelly had 18, 4 of 11 from 3-point range. And UCF held Oklahoma State to 6 for 25 from the field in the second half. 7 for 32 in total after halftime. That is lockdown freaking defense, Eric Lopez.
Yeah, I think that's the identity of this team. That's what allowed them to stay in and make the comeback against Oklahoma State, which is significant. I mean, that's a Big 12 opponent. That's who you're going to be playing next year. How do you measure up? And I think what we learn, if UCF's going to be competitive in the Big 12 next year, defense has to come with them when they go to the Big 12. And I think this is more of a Johnny Dawkins type team. I don't think this team has played well defensively, at least to the level of a 2019 team the last couple of years. They have in this stretch. And part of it is because they have length, they have depth, especially in the front court, and allow them to stay in the game. And then you've got a star in Taylor Hendricks who can get you buckets, who is a super talent, who is probably the best front court player they've had in over a decade. And you've got guys chipping in from other areas. So it was a huge win to win that in overtime. And I think they carry that over to Santa Clara to win the championship, with guys stepping in. CJ Kelly from the 3-point line was big in the Oak State win. Ty Freeman was big in the win against Santa Clara. All these pieces together there. And I think there's good chemistry here, a good bonding deal. I know that's what Coach Dawkins told us. That's one of the reasons why they're playing in the Bahamas, because of building that chemistry. You realize, and I wrote this on Black and Gold Banneret, it's the first tournament UCF's won in pre-conference, not counting those, back in the day, holiday tournaments they would host outside. First tournament they've won since 2004 when they won the tournament in Alaska.
Yeah, so first neutral site tournament that they've won since that.
So it's a big deal. This is a big deal. I know people, it's a pretty big deal, especially for this group from a confidence standpoint. I think this was a big weekend for them.
Well, I think also against the competition, right? It's one thing if you beat, Elon and Harvard, but you beat a Big 12 team, you beat Santa Clara. Santa Clara out in the Big West, they usually compete pretty well out there with their West Coast Conference. Yeah. The West Coast Conference. So they're out there competing with the likes of Gonzaga. They're competing with St. Mary's.
Their head coach.
Herb Sendek is, who has been coaching for next to forever. These are two quality programs.
And you get the wins, and you hold these teams down. I mean, Oklahoma State has a future pro in Cisse inside. That's the Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year. So,
Former Memphis Tiger, by the way, too. We've seen him before.
Yeah, well, we see a lot of Memphis guys leave, too, but that's another story. Cisse was good. You beat Santa Clara. Confidence. Now you come home. You have Evansville on Wednesday, and then you got a big one. You got a big one with Miami on Sunday. So, this team is still not fully healthy. C.J. Walker missed the game against Santa Clara. He got banged up in the Oak State game. Still don't have Darius Johnson. We don't know when we're getting him back. I think that's important because I think that'll improve the offense. Because I still think their offense, I still have concerns as it is right now. But again, there's an asterisk because there's no Darius Johnson. But this defense, I think they're going to give them chances to win the games this year.
Drew, are you seeing this team? What is the difference in your eyes from last year's team in terms of how they've been able to put this together and how they've been able to get off to this good start?
There's two things. One is they have a player that can create his own shot. Last year, you really didn't have one. You had guys who tried to do it, but they really didn't have it. Taylor Hendricks has the ability to create his own shot. And CJ Kelly is very opportunistic. And to what Eric said, Darius Johnson, who's meant to be the field general here, isn't playing. So you have a bunch of guys who are transfers. Like we talked about also like Horton is transfer from Pitt.
Yep. Kelly's a transfer from UMass. Yeah,
Kelly from UMass. I mean, you have Brandon Suggs from East Carolina. You have a lot of pieces that have been pulled from all sorts of different places. In the case of these guys, they're veterans, so they've been around, and in some cases have been transfers once before. I believe Horton had been to another school before Pitt. So you have some that understand the meaning of coming together, and by having a different attitude coming in. This is definitely not a me team. Last year was a me team where players were playing more for themselves than for others. You're not seeing that this time. You're actually seeing more assists, more passing. Jalen Young over 3.5 assists. CJ Kelly almost 2.5. Suggs almost 1.5, and Horton a little under 2. So they're moving the ball around, and that extra pass can be the difference between scoring and not scoring. The thing that this team has to be at least not concerned about, but cognizant of, is their inconsistency in 3-point shooting. They like to toss the ball up, but they're not the most consistent shooters. They're actually better off inside the arc. I mean, Taylor Hendricks is very dangerous in the paint. I mean, he has over 50% on his field goals. I mean, you get him inside the paint, he's going to score. Move that, the inside outside game can generate points. Plus, he's not afraid of taking a hit. He can get to the free throw line. CJ Kelly as well is very dangerous at drawing fouls. We haven't seen a player generate the ability to draw contact since really BJ Taylor did, who is the one of the best at drawing contact and continuing.
DJ was supposed to be that because he's just built like a tank, but again, like you said, he's hurt. We haven't seen him yet.
Yeah. CJ Kelly has been able to get to the line and shoot from the line well, 90% on the season. He's the top free throw shooter on the team. As you know, in college free throws can be very hit or miss, but I mean, he's consistent. He gets to the line and he scores at the line. You utilize that. And that's a big thing that UCF hasn't had since Taylor, since BJ Taylor. Yeah. I think that really changes the capabilities of this team. Last year and even the year before, very incomplete teams had guys who just, you had one player in Brandon Mahan who would score 20 points and then score 0 the next game. You had Darius Perry, who is played like Allen Iverson without the ability to score. Would just throw up a lot of buckets, and unlike Allen, he would not actually hit most of them.
Not a good finisher.
Terrible finisher. Kind of like Willie Mays Hayes, except takes all the worst aspects.
Well, I as we look at what the schedule has coming up here, Eric, and I want to see, right now we're looking at, like you said, Evansville on Wednesday, and Evansville is no joke. They gave us a ride last year in their place. That's a good program. Miami on Sunday, who's looking for revenge against UCF, considering UCF dropped 95 on them in Coral Gables last year. And then also, you get a week off and you get Samford, Tarleton State, actually, who'd they just knock off?
Boston College.
Boston College. And then you're at Ole Miss December 14th. So we're getting ready to hit a stretch, where the competition is going to step up as we approach conference play. Like we said, we don't know when we're going to get Darius Johnson back, but what do you want to see in these next two games against Evansville and Miami at home, Eric?
I think you just keep improving. You just want to keep improving. And I think this Evansville game, I'm going to be curious how they come out. It's the night before Thanksgiving. I'm not expecting a monster crowd, right? Like, a lot of people are getting ready for that turkey. I know Drew is. Drew's getting ready for the turkey.
I love me some turkey.
So
I'm already brining the bird right now, man.
So, let's hope the basketball players are not thinking about that. That's my concern. Because, they could come out flat. And then, look, this year in college basketball, there's a ton of upsets that are going on in November. So, and I wouldn't even call this just more efficient in certain areas. And then Miami, obviously, that's an ESPNU game. That'll be a good point. Miami's pretty good. Miami might be the best team in the state at the rate we're going this year. Hopefully you beat Evansville and then set yourself up for a Miami team that's receiving votes. And I think we're going to have a good crowd for that Miami game, especially if football takes care of business the night before, because I think at that point, people will be kind of riding that momentum. And you hope for the best there. I think that's what you want to see is more improvement offensively, being efficient, and hopefully get CJ back healthy. I mean, he's played earlier in the year, missed the San Diego game. Hopefully he's back either for Evansville or Miami, because they'll definitely need him against Miami.
Yeah. Well, I think they're being I think Johnny Dawkins is being very judicious with CJ. We've seen him in certain spots. I know that at home, we saw him in the game against Florida State. He was very careful with him. He did not play against Asheville. I forget how much he played in the Western Illinois. I think they
didn't have to play much because they blew him out.
Yeah, I didn't have to play.
Oklahoma State game.
He played in Oklahoma State. Then they held him back for San Diego. He played against Western Illinois and played only 17 minutes off the bench. But they held him out against Santa Clara. I do think that the ideal situation here is, now you want to continue to develop the chemistry between all the new guys. I'm really a huge fan of Jalen Young, by the way. I've enjoyed watching him play.
He's in a weird way, he's become the most important player because of the Darius Johnson injury.
Yeah.
He's the only true point guard they have right now that's healthy.
Yeah, because when he's out, they put CJ Kelly and more or less Kelly and Horton kind of split the point.
Right. They're not natural points. They're just playing it out of necessity. So he's actually become a very valuable player from that standpoint to run the offense. And again, if they can get Darius back, now all of a sudden, you could have Young as your backup to Darius.
You could play them both at the same time.
Play them both at the same time. And all of a sudden, it just creates more depth in the backcourt, which they're missing right now.
Yeah. All right. So we're up for Evansville Wednesday, Miami Sunday. On the other side of things, women's basketball, let's check in with them. They're 3-0. They beat Campbell in a very tight game last Tuesday in 62-60, but came back home, had a week off, came back home. Louisiana Monroe out of the Sun Belt beat them by 24.
Wait, they hosted Monroe? They're not in Louisiana?
That's right. Somebody tell Kyle.
Drew, did you tell? You didn't tell Kyle that the game was here? He drove to Louisiana, Drew. You didn't tell him?
Oh God! Please give us a better dad joke.
All right,
something.
Listen,
Jeff, save the show.
Okay,
Hi,
this game very much. This game very much felt like a kind of a throwback to Coach Abe's era in a little bit, because we were UCF was trailing 15-12 after one, and then outscored ULM by 27 points in the final three quarters. It started 4 for 13 from the field, but turned it on in the second half. 19 for 33 from the field in the second half. They were 9 of 14 from the field in the fourth quarter. Leading scorers for UCF, 16 for Destiny Thomas, who has just picked up right where she left off, 7 of 11 from the field, 4 rebounds to go with it. 15 for Rachel Ranke on 5 of 9 from the field, including 3 threes. 14 for Taylor Gibson off the bench, coming in as a big. She's 6 of 12 from the field as well. And you get 9 rebounds from Layla Jewett, 7 rebounds from Brianna Hardy, who I think has really been fantastic. And I'm really enjoying Eric Lopez, Sierra Godbolt. She came off the bench, 3 of 9 from the field, but she is the point guard of the future. 3 of 9 from the field and 21 minutes off the bench, 4 assists, 8 points, and 2 of 2 from the line. I thought she was so key in that Campbell game. She brings a different kind of energy. She's infectious. And she was, again, I think pretty key off the bench tonight too, Eric. Much the same way that Jalen Young so far has been key for UCF men's basketball, so has Sierra Godbolt.
Yeah, I agree. Now, I'm going to be honest. I didn't watch a ton of the game against Monroe because I watched a little bit of it, and then the college football playoff ranking came, and then we were ranked.
And then we were all running around like
crazy and, I for sure. So I thought for a second, that's right, the women's game. So I was glad that they won the game. So I won't come, but I will say, I agree with you. I think this has more potential for firepower offensively. And the other thing I will say, you mentioned Destiny Thomas's line. If she stays healthy, I think she'll be an all-conference performer this year. I think I think you've seen her improve big time. She's going to be more of an option offensively than she was previously, not because of, if nothing else, they just had so many bodies last year, bigs with Kaba and company, that there just wasn't room for her. Now there is. And I think she's can play to an all-conference performer. And again, if they could build this chemistry, a little more shooting, I think they'll be a top half team in the league. And we'll see how this continues over the weekend here when they host this tournament.
I like New Desto, by the way. Did you see? I think back to the Campbell game a little bit. Like, did you see how aggressive she was? She was a little bit more of a vocal leader out there. Like, amazing what a year. This is a new Desto, man. I'll tell you, she's improved her skill set. She really developed a smoothness around the hoop, but now she's done that even more. She rebounds like crazy. I love it. I love what she's been able to do. And I think that the other players, all the new players, the Maya Burnses, the Bree Hardys, the Rachel Rankes, the Sierra Godbolts, they look to her as the glue. And I couldn't pick a better player to put that together, because she was always a team player in the Coach Abe era. And I think she continues to be that now. She was a part of, I think it's important to have a culture that travels. And she's established that. I think that's key. What a great leader. I'm a huge fan of Desto. So let's look at what women's basketball. Did they receive votes, Eric? I didn't see. No, they didn't receive any votes. But
they're not as kind as they are the committee.
Yeah. But this weekend, home tournament, Samford Saturday at 2, Southeast Missouri State Sunday at 2, and then Sam Houston next Thursday. So Another couple games against some mid-majors that UCF is going to have to sort out. You're coming in after the holiday, so maybe a little bit of a hangover, as the turkey and stuffing settles in, right? We've seen. I always think like after Thanksgiving is a really good test for teams. because, we take a little mini vacation and then we come back and we play.
Christmas time. Yeah. Usually
Yeah.
Christmas. Those are a couple tricky spots there. I just hope we get Kyle back from Louisiana after this miscommunication here and he can be back covering those games. That's what I'm worried about. Sorry,
Just
Kyle.
For the record, Kyle is not in Louisiana because he thought the game was at Monroe.
Are you sure? Okay.
Yes, I'm sure about that. Okay. But anyway.
Does he think the conference title game's in Tulane and that's why? No, that's not either. Okay. Just check.
No, but if he's there, if he's
Can
there,
he just stay. I mean, I'm just
maybe
saying.
he could stay.
Just stay an extra week, man. We'll cover for you.
It's New Orleans, it's not that bad. So,
Sure.
okay. Well, we'll think about it. All right. That's the update on women's hoops. They are 3-0 to start the season, hoping they'll go 5-0 at the UCF Thanksgiving Classic, back-to-back Saturday, Sunday, 2 p.m. each day on ESPN Plus. Both those games. Eric, are you doing anything on this coming weekend? We got a busy weekend coming up here, man.
Not women's hoops, no. Or men's hoops, no. The boys over there have it. Austin Lyon has it taken care of.
Austin's got it, yeah. And Scotty for the women.
I think he's doing women on Sunday. Austin's doing men's hoops Wednesday. He's doing women's Saturday.
Yep. All right.
With BJ Taylor, by the way.
Yep. BJ's been doing both.
He's doing both this year, yeah.
You notice that? Yeah. So, all right. We'll be back in a little bit when we return. Wrap up women's soccer as they finish up. Their season comes to an end in the NCAA tournament second round and penalty kicks again. And then also we look ahead to a huge weekend for UCF volleyball. A lot at stake, legacies on the line. Stick around. We'll be back in a moment. This is the Black Gold Banneret Podcast. We're back here on the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. Jeff and Eric with you here as we wrap up on this pre-Thanksgiving show. Lots to talk about with UCF volleyball here as we start. Well, actually, before we go to that, I want to talk about UCF women's soccer. They saw their season come to a heartbreaking conclusion once again at the hands of just like volleyball last year. Their season comes to an end at the hands of UCLA in Los Angeles, number one team in the country, Eric, in the coaches poll, number one seed in the region. They took the lead. UCLA got a goal back. They go to PKs and UCF gets shut out in PKs, which is just a horrible way for the season to end. But UCF ends up 9-2-7 on the year. Because remember, the first round game against NC State on Sunday, that was that goes to PKs. That counts as a draw. The AAC semifinal that they played against Memphis prior to that counts as a draw, even though they lost to Memphis in PKs 6-5. Then they go to PKs against UCLA and lose in PKs 3-0. So technically, their last three, all three of their postseason games were ended in ties.
That's the uniqueness of soccer. You don't actually have to lose to be eliminated from the postseason.
Right. But again, with PKs, you know how it is. You roll the dice, and it came up snake eyes twice, once against Memphis and the other against UCLA, which is a bummer.
Yeah, I mean, they played the number one team. That UCLA could end up being the national champions. We'll see. Time will tell on that. But I mean, they played
last time UCF, by the way, got this far in the tournament. They lost to the eventual national champions, which is Florida State. Right,
Sweet 16 in 2014. But man, that was a great match to watch. I mean, UCLA got the lead early. Diana Martin with a goal in the first half. UCLA responded on a header. And it was back and forth. And I think what happened, and, we had a chance to talk to Tiff, and you could watch that on our YouTube channel now on the Black and Gold Banneret. We actually spoke to her at 2 a.m. Eastern time after the match. Props to Alex, the SID, for setting that up. That's a new record for a late night post-game Zoom there. But the fact this was their third straight PKs, I think, hurt UCF, because now as a player, you're thinking, well, do they know my tendencies? Because UCLA's obviously seen all these PKs. So sometimes a player can get in their own head and overdo it. And I think we saw a little bit of that on the PKs where, like, wow, what the heck was that about? I think they literally mentally kind of overthought it. And when you overthink it, you don't give it your best kick. And I think, but, it's cruel to me. Man, what a great agree. I tell you, Jeff, we've known Tiff for now a decade. I've never seen her so emotionally proud of a group than she is about this group. She was emotional. She was hurting because obviously this was a great group, but proud of this group, this senior class, which has been through a lot, right? They hadn't made the tournament, won the conference, to finish on a high note.
A lot of pressure on them this year.
Sure.
A lot of pressure on them this year, and they did not crack one bit.
No. And really set up the program great. I mean, you're literally PKs away from the round of 16. That's how tight this was. A heck of a year for them. Caroline Delisle, who was fantastic in the match, she'll be back. Coach Tiff told us after the match she will be back because she has an extra year of that COVID year. And I think, Jeff, one thing we got to keep and remember about, and it's kind of been downplayed. I think the fact that UCF's going to the Big 12 is helping them keep some of these players that have extra year of eligibility. Say, you know what? I'm going to stick around. I want to play in the Big 12. Like, I haven't asked Caroline that, so I'm sure she's happy here, but she could have easily said, you know what? I've done everything I could do here. Let me try something different. But I think the fact that UCF's going to the Big 12, there's something to be said for that. But that's huge because they're going to have her back next year going to the Big 12. Obviously, you got to replace some of the personnel. Kristen Scott.
Yeah, Scott's done. This was her 5th year.
Yeah, Daria Raji, the midfielder of the year. You got to replace her. But they have some good young talent. Mia Sen, who I thought played well in that UCLA match, among others, will play well. Kristen Scott's sister will play probably next year. She's on the roster. So they'll be a little younger, but a heck of a job by this group to win the conference, win an NCAA tournament match, and quiet all those critics out there. You know who you are, Eric.
You know exactly who you are.
Yeah, you've been quiet. It's been quiet out there. A little quiet. So, man, I felt for them in that match, but they had nothing to be ashamed of. They played a great match against a great team in UCLA.
Yeah. I mean, it's just,
and by the way,
it's heartbreaking.
And Tiff's on a commercial, by the way. Look, it aired during the World Cup. Look for it. Addition Financial commercial with Coach Sahedek during the World Cup.
Is that right?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Man.
You got a big-time coach here, Jeffrey. Got a big-time
Big
coach.
time. Well, I mean, she's going to be busy, doing stuff with Team USA too. I mean, we do know that heading in. Yeah. I mean, it's now they head to the spring, figure out what they've got going into next year. But I do think that getting, assuming that remains true. I mean, Kristen Scott did post on Instagram that, this is it for her. Yeah. And did confirm that. But the fact that Caroline Delisle certainly may be coming back is a huge boost to this team because we thought that they would be. They did have a lot of key seniors on this team, and her coming back, I think, is going to be a very helpful bridge into the Big 12. And like we said, they're going to the Big 12. Women's soccer is a thing in the Big 12. Men's soccer is not, which is a whole other can of worms. But yeah, it's going to be now the transition starts. And, it's interesting seeing, these teams that they are the first, women's soccer is the first team sport that is going to be moving, that has now concluded its run in the American. Cross country concluded their run in the American. We consider that, I guess you consider that more of an individual sport.
Right.
Soccer, the first team sport to go that's going from the American into the Big 12, because the men's soccer, of course, is joining the Sun Belt. So,
and going in on a positive, going in with a great year, and I think that's going to feed
they took the number one team in the country to PKs in the NCAA tournament.
Right, and if they win that, we might be talking about them this weekend in the Elite Eight for all we know.
Right,
who knows? But they got momentum. You got the transfer portal. I think they're going to take advantage of that a little bit next year. And it's just a lot of positive. I remember we did the preseason. One of the big questions this year is, can they get back to the tournament? Well, not only they did that, they win the conference title.
Yep. They advanced in the tournament.
Get a win. So they checked a lot of boxes. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what UCF women's soccer can do with the added resources. We talk about the other sports and the resources. A lot of fans think about UCF women's soccer as this incredible job. And it is. Because, but it doesn't have the resources of some of these other programs. Like Colby Hale, for example, a friend of ours who used to be the associate.
Former assistant here under Amanda Cromwell.
Yeah, correct. He's now to his first Elite Eight with Arkansas. They just beat Memphis. They're playing FSU in the Elite Eight. And there's some people like, man, how would Colby have done here? And I told him he wouldn't be as successful here as he is at Arkansas because they have more resources at Arkansas. They just do. Facilities, money, and everything. It's women's soccer, that's the thing. With Cromwell and Sahedek has kind of spoiled people thinking this is just this one of the top, and Michelle Akers, just obviously to some extent, when you have the greatest soccer player arguably ever in the history of the sport play for your school, there's high expectations. So you get all that. But it's not like, I mean, like they haven't, it's not like they're having this incredible facilities around them. All right. Like I would argue if we did, and we'll do this probably in the summertime, among the checklist is some upgrades to soccer's in the track stadium. I think we can all agree on that. I'm just going to leave it as that. I'm really excited what this program will do now that they'll actually be on an even playing field with some of the top programs in soccer.
And it's going to take a minute too before those checks start rolling in. You know,
but I think you got the right coach in the meantime to do it. And credit to Terry Mahajer, who extended her. Coach is here for a while. I think she's the right coach going into the Big 12 for these circumstances.
Yeah.
They're used to playing these tough schedules. So I think it's a big positive for women's soccer, and really happy for everybody there. And really that whole coaching staff, because I mean Tiff took off doing the U.S. assistant thing. Tim Sahadak stepped in as the quote head coach when she was away. Just a great job by all parties. They really deserve the success they had this year.
Yeah, looking forward to next year too. All right, that brings us to UCF Volleyball, who, Eric, you've already written it up on the site, and we're going to reiterate it here. This is the moment for UCF Volleyball right now. This is the final weekend of the regular season coming up. They are home. They have Tulane and Houston. This team is 25-1. 17-1, but that one was at Houston in 4 back on October the 7th, and it continues to kind of be a thorn in their heel right now because now obviously take care of Tulane, but UCF has swept 5 straight matches. They swept ECU at ECU, they swept Temple at Temple, and now you play Tulane. Tulane right now, they've been struggling. I thought they would be better this year, but they've been really struggling. 3 of 15 in the league, RPI of 250. That's not going to help anybody at all. But you're going to, but obviously take care of business first. And then you face Houston. Houston is right now 27-2, 18-0 in the conference. Their only losses were, believe it or not, in their opening match against Rice. They got swept, and then they got beaten 4 by Texas. Since then, they have won 19 in a row. That's a school record. They are in Tampa for Wednesday against the Bulls at 1, and then they're at UCF on Friday at 5. So guess what? We have a big Black Friday UCF event, except it's not football against South Florida. It's volleyball against Houston. And you, Eric Lopez, worked out the tiebreakers here.
I did. Thank you to the league, the conference, who sent it over to me. So let's first move Wednesday here. If Houston wins against South Florida, they clinch at least to share the regular season title. UCF must win at that scenario against Tulane to keep their hopes of a conference championship alive. All right? Simple as that. That's the simple stuff as far as Wednesday. Now, if Houston were to lose to South Florida and UCF were to beat Tulane, then Friday's a winner take all. Simple as that. Where it gets interesting is let's be honest, if there was Vegas odds, this would be the favorite. Houston wins, UCF wins Wednesday. That sets up UCF Houston Black Friday. Houston wins on Black Friday. They're the outright champions. If UCF wins, that's where it gets
that's where it gets fun. This is where we have to start counting sets.
Jeffrey, you're gonna be there. That might be your job.
I will be there. We'll have to start counting sets. And we could possibly have to start counting points, Eric.
So here's the scenario. If UCF wins in 3 straight sets over Houston, they win the tiebreaker. They get the automatic bid. They're the conference champion.
Yep.
If UCF wins in 5 sets, Houston wins the tiebreaker. Because remember, Houston beat UCF in 4 sets. So
right.
the tiebreaker is who beats who in the sets. So obviously, if UCF only
beats total sets, right?
Correct. So it's really fascinating. Now you're asking yourself, well, what if UCF beats Houston in 4? Great question. Right. Well, so you have to Houston when they beat UCF back in October in 4 sets, the combined margin of points in that match when you added it up was 4 points.
Yep.
So UCF has to win by more than 4 points. to win the tiebreaker.
So that, yeah, they would have to win if they go to a fourth set and UCF wins in 4. They would not only have to win in the fourth set, Eric, but they would have to win by at least 4 points.
Yeah. And then
this is all because, by the way, this is all because there's no postseason tournament, Todd Dagenet. I just wanted to point that out.
And we'll get to that, Jeffrey, because there is some interesting scenarios as we'll discuss in a moment about that. But now the interesting thing is if UCF beats Houston in 4 sets and the margin is 4 points, now we got to go to more tiebreakers.
So let's say UCF beats Houston in 4 and it's UCF plus 4 when we add it all up. Golly. Anyway, carry on. Now where are we going?
Well, they would go to the next tiebreaker, which is a record against common opponent. One problem: both teams would have beaten everybody, so that's a tie. So the next tiebreaker, overall win-loss record against Division I. Obviously, your overall record. Well, UCF would win that tiebreaker because they would only have the 1 loss, whereas Houston would have 3 losses for the season. So UCF would win the tiebreaker in that scenario. That would be insane.
It's not likely that it would get, and I find it interesting, Eric, that seems more cut and dried than total point differential against that opponent, which seems to get. Like if I'm stacking the order of, if I'm stack ranking the order of tiebreakers, like I feel like that one would be like right above coin flip.
Which one?
Right.
The
total points against each other, total point differential.
I'm not going to speak on behalf of Todd. Of Todd or David Rear, the Houston head coach, who I'm going to speak to both of them this week. My guess is what they would tell you, because the coaches voted on this. Is they're trying to make this head-to-head decide it all. Instead, you know what I mean? And I think that's why the point differential is a part of it. And to Todd's credit, he was the one that brought this attention to me way back about this tiebreaker. And it's because they want it to be decided on the court. They don't want it to be decided by unique circumstance. So
they want it to be decided like the Ohio Valley Conference football thing. Did you see that?
Go ahead for the audience. I did.
The Ohio Valley Conference had a tie atop their conference, but the automatic bid to the NCAA FCS championship tournament had to be decided by, it went to the tiebreaker. All the tiebreakers were tied. It went to a coin flip. Coin flip.
And that's as it turns out, right?
Yeah.
That's nuts.
Well, as it turns out, I want to get this right here because it was really wild. Because the team that lost the coin flip is not going to, I don't think, got in. Yeah, the Ohio Valley. So it was between Tennessee Martin and SEMO, Southeast Missouri State. Yeah. So and I want to see the FCS playoffs.
I don't think volleyball coaches would be thrilled if it came down to a coin toss. I don't think Todd and David would be thrilled.
Could you imagine?
Hey guys, we're just going to flip a coin. How would that? Would we broadcast it right on the court, right there? Who calls it? Like, I mean, come on, that's not.
Oh, SEMO did get in. I'm sorry. SEMO got in.
There you go.
Tennessee Martin did not get in. So they lost a chance at a national championship because of a coin flip.
Now, I will agree with you on this. Let's come up with a computer formula that's better than that. All right? Can we get a computer to like rank them and decide that? Like, that's better than a coin flip. I'm not gonna.
My boy Sagarin ranks the FCS teams.
There you go. Now I will side with you on this. I will side with you. There's a case where computers would better than a human coin flip toss. Give me a break. But anyway, look, we're going to focus a lot about the conference title, but there's also other ramifications for the winner in Black Friday. Assuming both teams win, both Houston and UCF are in the mix to host. Selection Sunday is Sunday night, 7:30. And I wrote about this on Black Gold Banneret. They are in them both. The winner of the Houston UCF match is in the mix to host. I'm not saying they would, depending on who you talk to in the sport. Some think that the winner of that match will host. Some think not. Who knows? But the only way you can find out is by winning the match. I think both sides would agree, the loser of that match more than likely knows they're packing their bags. They're going on the road. The winner will be watching Selection Sunday, wondering if they can host. And this year, the committee is seeding 32 teams, not 16. I break that down on Banneret. So it's not as predictable. It shouldn't be, Jeffrey, as far as what UCF's fate will be on Sunday, either from a hosting standpoint or even if they lose on Friday. It's not like, hey, they're going to Gainesville, it's a lock. It should be a little more unpredictable. It should be more parity. So that's going to be fascinating in that regard. But the winner of Houston UCF Black Friday might sneak in as a host, because you look at the teams in the mix. Like, do you really believe two Big East teams are going to host in Marquette and Creighton? I don't. And if Marquette were to beat Creighton, I think Creighton at 1-5 against the top 25 might be out. That could open up a spot for somebody like UCF or Penn State. Baylor, if they were to lose a match. I mean, there's a lot of intrigue still in this puzzle.
You mentioned, here's another bit about that is you said in your column that there are 12 locks.
Yeah.
And so that leaves 7 teams in the hunt for 4 slots. One of them is Rice.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's a pretty good possibility that the committee might just say, we'll just stick Houston with Rice and call it a day. So there's one.
Right. And it's an interesting story because Texas is a lock to host. You got Baylor, Rice, Houston, all in the mix to host. I agree with you. They're not going to pick 4 teams from the state of Texas to host. But how many do they pick? And you're right. From a seeding standpoint, Rice and Houston paired up makes sense. Baylor and Houston makes sense. Rice and Baylor, it all makes sense. So I agree with you on that.
I think, believe it or not, I think the wild card in here is the one team that you have kind of at the bottom, which is Penn State.
I agree.
At 22-7, because we know that they sell out that gym all the time.
Yep.
Big Ten is the second best conference in the country behind the Big 12, interestingly enough. And pretty much everyone, they seem to be the one, aside from possibly Baylor, the one, and possibly Creighton too, the one like brand volleyball program that you're looking at.
The
here.
Brand. I mean, they're a huge brand, to your point, and they play Purdue. If they beat Purdue, that's now it'll be interesting if that, because Purdue's kind of in 25 range in the RPI. But I agree with you. It would not surprise me if Penn State won against Purdue, that they would slip in.
That would get them to 500 in the RPI top 25 too.
Correct.
At least.
And they would probably be a top 16 at somebody's expense, whether that be Creighton, could be Rice, could be Baylor. You're right.
It would probably be Baylor. I have the suspicion that it would probably be Baylor. I just think that I think it's going to boil down to whoever comes out on top of Marquette and Creighton,
Big East tournament,
Big East tournament, whichever, if Houston, and they're going to pick one of the 2 Houston schools. If Rice gets, finishes off Conference USA, it's going to be them. If Houston finishes off the American, I think it'll be them too.
Well, the thing about Rice is they're in the clubhouse because they already played the CUSA.
Oh yeah, that's right, because they played the CUSA tournament.
And you brought this up. You brought this up last week, and you brought this up this week. Having a conference tournament versus not having it, the pros and cons. Rice benefited big time from the conference tournament because they got one more opportunity at beat against Western Kentucky, and they beat them. And that's why Rice jumped up in the RPI. So having the conference tournament helped Rice. I think the Big East tournament might hurt the loser of Marquette and Creighton. The question is, does UCF and Houston not having an American Conference tournament help or hurt them? We may not know that until Selection Sunday. I think that's something to monitor. Does Rice benefit and get a host spot because they won a conference tournament? Does the Big East get hurt or helped by the Big East tournament? Does UCF or Houston get helped or hurt by not having a conference tournament? I think, Jeff, that's something to watch on Selection Sunday there. I think that's a very interesting point there.
Well, let's not forget that by virtue of the 2 of them playing each other, UCF and Houston, I mean, that's a top 20 RPI matchup for both of them, which could potentially, which to what extent it'll potentially boost the 2 of them in that RPI, I'm not 100% sure, but there's a possibility that it might. I think that the committee might look at, you mentioned Rice having already won the Conference USA Championship. I think if Houston wins the American, they're going to slide Rice into Houston. And so then the question then becomes, well, now you have 2 spots. Do you go with Baylor?
Right.
If UCF defeats Houston and is able to pull off all the 58 tiebreakers, do you go with Orlando? You have 2. You would essentially have 2 Florida sites.
First time that would ever happen, by the way.
Right. And then I think the other interesting question to me would be, if UCF does not win the tiebreaker with Houston, and Houston does get the auto bid out of the American, does UCF get shipped to Gainesville yet again? Or do they get shipped somewhere else like last year when they were sent out to UCLA?
So let's go through those scenarios. Could they go to Florida? Yes, but I think it's a lower percentage than in the past. Whereas in the past, we would say, yeah, that's a done deal.
Yeah.
Where does Florida get hosted seed-wise will play a role in that. Do you believe Florida is a top 10 seed? Is a Florida 11 seed, 12 seed? And then we're going to know, the beauty this year, Jeff, is we will know how UCF is seeded based on where they go. Mm-hmm. So they could go to Florida. They could go to Baylor, let's say, if they host. They could go to one of those Big East schools, Marquette or Creighton, or they could go to Penn State. I think that's what you're looking at is the track for UCF if they go on the road. If UCF host, they will not see Florida. Florida's a lock to host.
Yeah.
The negative is you might get Penn State to come to your house if Penn State's not hosting.
Penn State won at the venue last year. Of course, it was Russ Rose's last year. Yeah. Not quite the same program, obviously, but you're still dealing with Penn State. You might get
Penn State. You might get one of the Big East schools to come here. How about this first storyline? USC might come here.
Oh, that would be something.
Wouldn't that be something? Todd Dagenet came from USC. This is for Mick Haley.
Yeah. So and let's not forget, UCF beat USC the last time they played. That was several years ago, and it was down in Fort Myers, but they did beat USC.
Also, one more point. The 400-mile radius still applies to the 3 and the 4 seeds. So let's say UCF host. They might get a Penn State or a USC or Georgia Tech as a 2 because they'll be seeded. But then the 3s and the 4s, you better believe it'll probably be a Florida team. Miami or FSU likely comes here with the other one going to Florida. Mm-hmm. And then FAMU's going to Florida. And guess who's coming back here as a 4?
Florida Gulf Coast, isn't it?
Yep. They won the A-Sun. So that's in play if UCF host. And I think for them to host, and I think if they beat Houston, they have a shot. The thing that helps them, they've been a perennial NCAA tournament team too. I think that helps UCF. Whereas Houston, you realize this, Jeff? Houston hasn't made the NCAA tournament since 2000.
Oh, man.
This is like a big deal for them. This is like a huge deal for them. So it's a lot of fun. I think Friday night could be arguably the biggest regular season match in UCF volleyball recent history, if not all time, considering what's at stake. The biggest match ever in the history of the American Athletic Conference.
Certainly in the Division I issue. Because remember, we've hosted some
Division I. We've
hosted some national championships back in the day. We won one.
Correct. First top 25 matchup ever held at the venue on senior night, where you're honoring arguably the greatest player in the history of the program, who might reach a milestone that match.
Right.
In McKenna Melville.
McKenna Melville right now, by the way, as we encroach upon MacWatch one more time, she is right now 5 kills from sole possession of 10th all time in Division I history in kills. She is 23 kills away from being the 10th NCAA Division I volleyball player ever with 2,500 kills. And as you mentioned in the piece, she's doing it in an era where it's much harder to get to 2,500 kills. She's 13 away from 500 for the season. Her third 500 kill season. Last time UCF had a player with 500 kills or more in a season was Leray Asante back in 2000. She's also, and Eric, I think this one is impressive in its own class. McKenna is 3 digs from becoming the 4th Knight to hit 1,600 for her career. And the reason why I say that's amazing is the other 3 players in front of her were all defensive specialists. And McKenna's known, obviously, for her offense. That's why I've said time and time again, I think she is the best all-around 2-way volleyball player I've ever seen. Because,
Me too.
And remember, she was, and of course, everyone knows the story right now. She was recruited as a libero.
Well,
and then she grew.
Libero production.
Yeah, and has given UCF libero. Yeah, has given UCF libero level production over her 5 years, 1,600 digs almost.
To put that in perspective, the analyst this week I'm working with, Tanner Goker, former North Carolina ACC Libero of the Year. I asked her how many career digs you had. She said 1,587.
Yeah, and she was a legit libero.
Yeah.
So, wow. McKenna
Historic
Melville.
week, man. Historic week.
We got a lot going on. So, all right. So let's break this down real quick, Eric, as where are we going to be and what are we going to be paying attention to? We got, we got Wednesday night. We got volleyball against Tulane, which is going to be
5
huge.
o'clock, right before the men's hoops game. So if you're going to hoops, go to volleyball, swing by, then head over to hoops. It's right next door.
It's right next door. Like, you have no excuse.
And then the Black Friday, 5 o'clock.
Yep. And then, of course, we all have the day off for Thursday. Black Friday, 5 o'clock for volleyball, 5 p.m., like we said.
Yeah. Just watch England and U.S. and then head over to volleyball.
Yes. Yeah, that's right. England and the United States in soccer, then head on over to volleyball. Saturday, women's basketball against Sanford, football at South Florida. That's at 2 p.m. for the women's hoops, 7 for football, South Florida ESPN 2. Sunday, busy day, women's basketball versus Southeast Missouri State, and men's basketball, 5 p.m. Against Miami. So that's a double dip.
Followed by doubleheader in ESPNU. You got the basketball game will be on U at 5 o'clock, followed by the volleyball selection show at 7:30. You'll find out where UCF is going or hosting, depending on what happens this week.
Yep, right after that. So you know what people are going to do? Go right from the arena to Burger U, probably. So
I would recommend that's where I would hold it. Now there's no word on any of that, but if they were to hold a watch party, I would suggest Burger U's probably. But
we'll keep an eye on it.
That's above our pay rate, so we'll let them decide all that.
We'll keep an eye on that. So wow, what a busy weekend. Happy. First of all, as you finish up, we want to wish every one of you a very, very happy Thanksgiving. We are thankful for you listening to and paying it to and reading us as you always have been. It's been a wild year so far. It's been I would say a real up and down year. We lost 2 great supporters and great fans of not just UCF, but of our little project in Lynn Cheek and James Reed this year. And we missed them terribly. We paid tribute to the both of them earlier, but this is our first holiday without them. And just we're thinking about them and their families as well. And we wish you, of course, a very happy, healthy, and safe Thanksgiving. You make sure you follow us. We are still on Twitter. It hasn't collapsed yet. UCF Banneret _SBN. I'm at Jeff_Sharon. Eric's at Eric Lopez Elo. Follow all the rest of us as well. Kyle Nash is at the SOTG. Special thanks to Drew. He's at Stat Boy Drew. Thanks again to Bryson. It's Bryson Turner. We got some, of course, our incredible photography talent. Brenna Johnson just joined us as well. She was at the women's basketball game tonight. Brenna Johnson Photography on Instagram. And also, not to mention, of course, Noah Goldberg, the Noah Goldberg on Twitter. He's also on Instagram, and also Derek Warden _DS Warden on Twitter. Just tremendous thanks. I'm in awe of all the work that you guys have done for the site, and it's just been absolutely fantastic. We are on Facebook, facebook.com/Black Gold Banneret. We are on YouTube. Look for Black Gold Banneret, where we have all the latest content up there, video content as well. And of course, our Instagram, Black and Gold Banneret, which I mentioned earlier, where we have a lot of our photos and also some post-game reaction as well from, not just football, basketball, you name it, it's up there. Wow, what a week it has been. What a last couple hours it's been. What a weekend we have coming up. For Eric, for all of us here at Black and Gold Banneret, I'm Jeff Sharon saying thank you so much for listening. Have a happy, healthy, and safe Thanksgiving. Go Knights, charge on. I'll see you at the arena on Wednesday night. See you then.